There comes a point where you are just completely, utterly tired. It is a very specific kind of exhaustion. You aren't being lazy and you haven't given up on your dreams. You are just worn out because you have been trying so hard for so long and absolutely nothing seems to move. You keep showing up every single day. You do everything right, you think more, you fix more, you plan more. But everything in your life just feels completely stuck. You are running on a treadmill, burning all your energy, but the scenery never changes. And deep down, in the quiet moments when the noise fades, there is a small voice inside you whispering a strange thought. It asks, maybe I'm not supposed to try this hard. That exact realization is where true trust begins. You see, the world modern society has built is obsessed with grinding. It teaches us that effort is the only thing that matters. We are told from childhood that if something isn't working out, the only logical answer is to push harder, hustle more, wake up earlier, and aggressively fix yourself. But almost nobody teaches you the other half of the truth. Nobody tells you that sometimes the answer isn't about doing more, it's about trusting more. And when you finally learn to trust yourself, to trust life, to trust the timing, and to trust the silence, something very strange begins to happen. Things finally start to move. The people you used to chase suddenly start reaching out to you. The answers you were frantically trying to force just land right in your lap. You suddenly feel lighter, like you are no longer dragging the heavy weight of your entire life behind you. Because the truth is, you don't always get what you force. You get what you are aligned with, and trust is the only thing that puts you in true alignment. Trust isn't just about crossing your fingers and hoping things magically work out. It is about knowing deep in your core that you don't need to control every single little detail just to feel safe. It's about breathing deeper, loosening your tight grip on reality, and remembering that you are not here to carry the weight of the whole universe on your shoulders. You are just here to live, and living flows so much better when you stop trying so hard to make every single thing perfect. But I know this is incredibly hard to do. Trust feels like a massive risk when all you have ever known your entire life is pressure. Letting go feels like an admission of weakness when you have built your whole identity around constant effort. But here is the secret that no one tells you. Trust does not make you passive. It makes you incredibly powerful. Because when you stop wasting your limited energy on things you cannot control, you finally have all your energy available for the things you actually can control. Here's the part most people never realize until they completely burn out. Trying too hard is actually a hidden sign that you don't trust yourself. Think about it deeply. When you overdo everything, it means you don't trust your own intuition. You don't trust your own timing. You don't trust that what is truly meant for you will recognize you without you having to constantly prove your worth. So you overcompensate. You overthink every scenario. You explain yourself to people who haven't even asked for an explanation. You show up for everyone else, even when you are physically and mentally exhausted. You keep pushing because the fear in your chest keeps whispering a toxic lie. It tells you, if I stop pushing for even a second, my entire life will fall apart. But it won't. In fact, the opposite is true. Sometimes when you finally stop trying so hard, that is the exact moment things start clicking into place. It happens because you are no longer operating from a place of intense fear and desperation. You are no longer trying to beg and convince life to give you what you want. Instead, you are coming from a place of calm, presence, and alignment. And alignment never begs, alignment naturally attracts. Trust means letting things breathe. It means allowing silence to exist without needing to frantically fill it with noise or activity. It means not panicking when there is a temporary pause in your progress. Because the most important things in human life, real love, deep peace, true psychological growth, they never show up through intense pressure. They grow in moments of complete stillness. They show up when you stop chasing the world and finally start listening to yourself. The more you try to micromanage and control everything around you, the more you confirm to your own brain that you are not in control. That is why your life always feels so incredibly heavy. That is why your breakthroughs never last. Because the fundamental energy behind them is fear. And fear will always force you to grip onto things, people, and situations that aren't even meant for you in the first place. But trust allows reality to unfold. Trust doesn't rush, it doesn't panic, it listens. It lets go of the tight grip, the strict timelines, and the constant mental spinning. Trust simply says, if it is meant for me, it is already on its way. That is not blind, lazy hope. That is profound wisdom. When you have lived enough life, when you have forced open enough doors that ultimately led to nowhere, and when you have chased enough people who didn't value you, you learn a hard lesson. You learn that trust isn't a weakness at all. It is a choice. It is a strong, quiet, deliberate choice to stop leaking your valuable energy into fear and to start investing it entirely into peace. And that peace doesn't just feel good in your body, it actively opens doors you didn't even know existed. Because now, instead of trying to fight and control life, you become the kind of person life actually wants to meet halfway. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. Trust feels totally unnatural when all you've ever known is survival mode. If you grew up feeling like love and approval had to be constantly earned, if you learned early on that success only comes through intense pressure and total burnout, then trust is going to feel completely unfamiliar to you. Letting go is going to feel dangerous, but here's what no one else tells you. You were not born to suffer your way into alignment. You were not meant to live your entire life with your jaw clenched and your chest tight, calling it discipline. That isn't discipline, it's survival. There is a completely different way to move forward without abandoning yourself. There is a way to build a career, grow a business, heal your trauma, and evolve as a person without losing your soul in the process. And that is exactly what trust gives you. It gives you yourself back. It gives you your energy back, your breath back, and your mental clarity back. Because instead of constantly trying to be 10 steps ahead of everything and everyone, you finally land right here, in the present moment, in your own body, in your own peace. You are no longer running complex mental simulations of worst-case scenarios. You are no longer begging the universe or other people for constant reassurance. You are grounded, you are rooted, you are open. And from that relaxed place, you naturally make much better decisions. You attract the right people, not because you are chasing them down, but because they can feel your absolute stability. You stop rushing, not because you have given up on life, but because you finally understand the massive difference between force and flow. Trust doesn't mean you just sit around on the couch waiting for life to happen to you. It means you stop sabotaging yourself when nothing is happening yet. It means you stop jumping in to fix things just because you are temporarily uncomfortable with the silence. Because now you finally understand a deep truth. Uncomfortable does not mean unsafe. Silent does not mean stagnant. And slow does not mean wrong. The more you trust, the more you begin to see that life actually has its own natural rhythm. It is not punishing you with these delays. It is preparing you. And sometimes, the only reason you are not moving forward into your next chapter is because you are still holding onto a heavy version of life you were never meant to carry. Once you let that old weight go, once you stop forcing yourself to be somewhere you are not ready to be yet, the path naturally opens up. It doesn't open because you pushed your way through with brute force. It opens because you finally stopped blocking the doorway. That is the ultimate shift from control to trust. That is the journey from burnout to balance, and from constantly trying to prove your worth to finally remembering it. There is something incredibly powerful that happens to your mind when you stop needing everything to happen right now. When you stop demanding immediate results, when you no longer try to rush your healing, your love life, or your life purpose, you finally become still enough to notice what is already working for you. You become intensely aware of just how much energy you have been wasting by checking your progress every 5 minutes. Most people are constantly measuring, constantly comparing, and constantly wondering if they are falling behind the crowd. But you have to ask yourself, falling behind according to what exactly? Some imaginary timeline that was never yours to begin with? Some invisible social clock that keeps you awake at night but does absolutely nothing to serve your peace of mind? When you trust, really trust, you stop reacting to every single delay like it's a definitive sign of failure. You start seeing delays as helpful direction. You start seeing sudden endings as necessary redirections. You completely stop asking, why is this horrible thing happening to me? And you start asking, what is this situation making space for? That is the ultimate mindset shift. That is the exact line where the frantic trying stops and the actual becoming begins. Because here is something most people never understand until it is way too late. You can easily get the thing you want and still completely lose yourself in the process of getting it. You can force the relationship to happen, you can force the career move, you can force the material success, but if you are disconnected, anxious, burnt out, and emotionally numb by the time you arrive at your destination, what was the entire point of the journey? That is exactly why trust matters so much. It is not just a strategy for getting a good outcome. It is the only way to keep your wholeness along the way. Trust builds a life that is actually sustainable for your nervous system. Force builds a life that eventually breaks down and collapses. When you move from a place of deep trust, You stop compromising your core values just to get a little bit ahead. You stop silencing your own intuition just to fit into a group. You stop chasing after people just because you are terrified of being alone with your thoughts. You start honoring your inner pace. You start listening to your body when it screams at you to rest. You start walking away from situations and connections that no longer feel alive. And by doing that, you begin to attract a completely different reality. You build a life based on truth, not on social pressure. A life built on soul, not on performance. A life built on peace, not on frantic urgency. And when that internal shift happens, the people around you will notice it instantly. They won't notice it because you told them you were healing, or because you are trying to be seen. They will notice it because you have completely stopped fighting with life, and now life is finally flowing through you instead of around you. One of the most misunderstood things about this entire concept is that people think trust means doing absolutely nothing. They think trusting means sitting around, being passive, and hoping life changes on its own. But that is not trust at all. That is just waiting. That is passivity, and it comes from fear. Real trust is highly active. It is a quiet confidence, not a lazy hope. It means waking up every single day and showing up fully for your life. But you are showing up not because you are afraid of failing, but because you know deep down that things are aligning for you, even if you cannot see the evidence yet. When you trust, your daily actions come from a place of total peace, not total panic. You are no longer trying to fill every single gap in your schedule with random noise or pointless motion just to feel productive. You're no longer forcing things into place just so you can stop feeling uncomfortable. You start to let the discomfort exist without rushing to escape it. And that is a massive superpower. Because discomfort is the exact place where the truth rises to the surface. Think about your past for a second. How many bad decisions did you make simply because you were terrified of waiting too long? How many wrong, toxic relationships did you stay in because you didn't trust that something genuinely better would show up for you? How many times did you say yes to something when every single cell in your body was screaming no, simply because you didn't trust that your boundaries would be respected? Trust changes that entire behavioral loop. It completely rewires your daily behavior. It teaches you how to take a deep pause before you react to external chaos. It helps you step back when you are tempted to run out and prove your worth to someone. And it constantly reminds you that your true value isn't found in how fast you move, but in how fully you align with who you are. You stop rushing into conversations just to fix your public image. You stop jumping into commitments just to feel a little bit less alone. You stop trying to earn things that were actually meant to be freely given to you. And instead, you finally begin to wait for the right things. Not just the fast things, not just the convenient things, but the real, soul-filling, peace-anchoring things that don't require you to shrink your personality, force an outcome, or put on a performance. That is the kind of life that trust builds. It is a life where every single no becomes a form of protection. Every delay becomes a form of preparation. And every silence becomes a sacred space for something real to grow. When you hit this stage of growth, you stop measuring your personal progress in numbers, strict timelines, or social validation. You start measuring your success in peace. You measure it by how little you feel the need to chase things. You measure it by how deeply you can breathe throughout the day. You measure it by how soft you have become on the inside without losing an ounce of your inner strength. That is the ultimate difference. Trust doesn't necessarily make your life easier, but it makes it infinitely clearer. And true clarity will always take you much further than control ever could. And here's the part that might surprise you the most. When you really start trusting your path, you begin to care way less about the final outcome and way more about your current alignment with it. You don't just ask yourself, will I get this thing? You start asking, does this thing even match the version of myself that I am actively becoming? That shift changes the entire game. Because when you are no longer trying to force results just to feel a baseline level of safety, you finally have the mental space to listen to your own heart. You have the space to question your desires. You can ask whether that thing you have been chasing for years even fits your life anymore, or if it is just an old survival pattern you forgot to question. Trust opens up the space required for true discernment. Without trust, you will just keep rushing toward things that do not serve you, all because you are terrified of slowing down. But when you trust, you can finally slow down. And in that slowness, you see the world with perfect clarity. You start to feel what is actually true for you, instead of what feels urgent to your anxiety. You stop reacting to fear, and you start responding from deep wisdom. It is in that quiet space where you completely stop settling for less. You don't stop settling because you are trying to prove your worth to the world, but because you finally truly believe in it yourself. You stop over-explaining your choices to people who aren't even listening to you. You stop chasing opportunities that drain your energy. You stop performing for love, validation, or attention. Because now your daily actions aren't an attempt to get something from the world. They are a pure expression of what you already know you carry inside yourself. That is exactly what makes trust so completely magnetic to success. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is not constantly posting, proving, or announcing its next move to the world. It just is. It is quiet, steady, and deeply grounded. And from that place of stability, life begins to meet you entirely differently. You start getting much better offers, not just in your business or your work, but in how people treat you on a daily basis. You start having much deeper, more authentic conversations, not because you push for them, but because people feel completely safe in your presence. You start naturally attracting situations that nourish your nervous system instead of overwhelming it. Because when you stop trying to outrun your fear and you start walking with your trust, the entire world shifts around you. It doesn't shift instantly, and it doesn't shift without challenges, but it moves with more ease, more clarity, and more flow than you have ever experienced when trying to force it all into place. You finally realize a beautiful truth: you do not need to chase the life you want, you just need to match it. And that matching happens entirely in your energy, your mindset, and your patience. It does not happen in your overworking. It does not happen in your burnout. It does not happen in your constant frantic doing. Trust doesn't mean waiting around forever. It just means no longer rushing into things that aren't real. So, if you are still carrying the old heavy belief that trying harder and stressing more will finally bring you peace, let it go right now. Trying has its place in life, absolutely, but trust is what carries you when effort alone starts to wear you down to the bone. Trust is what steadies your feet when nothing makes sense. Trust is what reminds you that what is truly meant for you will never, ever need to be forced into your life. Because no matter how much the modern world celebrates hustle, speed, and constant urgency, the most meaningful things in this life tend to arrive very quietly. They don't need you to chase them down, they just need you to make space for them. And that open space is created entirely by trust. Start trusting your timing today. Start trusting the silence. Start trusting the process, even when it feels uncomfortable. In fact, especially then, because the exact moment you stop pushing for it all to happen right now is often the very same moment everything starts aligning faster than you ever expected. It doesn't happen because you tried harder. It happens because you finally stopped getting in your own way. And if this message spoke to you today, if it helped something soften inside your chest, take a quick second to like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you want more moments like this. Calm, steady reminders that you are not behind, and you have absolutely nothing to prove to anyone. And if you made it all the way to the end of this, let me know by dropping the word trust down in the comments below. That one single word tells me that you are no longer forcing your life. I will see you in the next one.